Uh, I decided to switch it up with, well, not switch it up too much. I'm doing a Reddit thread, but I'm doing a different one. I'm a big fan of D&D and other tabletop RPGs, and it's October, so, I figured, hey, let's check out some D&D horror stories, yeah? Uh, let's see. Player can't accept consequences, makes the DM cry, and destroys their friendship. Jesus. Wow, this is a long one. Alright. Alright. TLDR? I'll have to look up what that abbreviation means. I don't know. I'm dumb. I'm sorry. Player blows multiple situations out of proportion, causes multiple of his friends to cry, doesn't like his DM standing up to him for once, leaves the campaign painting the DM as a villain in the process. Jesus Christ. What the fuck is going on? This is a tale in 3 parts, so get ready for a long one, hence the TLDR at the top. Yep, thank you for that. The people in this story are Miles. Hey, I have a friend named Miles. Sipta, Mag, me, and the DM. These are their characters' names to maintain anonymity. Another player, Thorgrid, also joins later, but he doesn't play much of a role in the overall issue. Alright, cool. We've all been friends since high school, and now we're all between 19 and 21. I joined their D&D group in 2020, midway through Sipta's campaign, and have been playing with them since. Currently, Sipta is running a different campaign, and I'm running my own campaign. Hey, good for you. We play online every Sunday, and we alternate weeks, which will make these lengths of time seem a bit more inflated than usual. Miles originally showed signs of being a problem player back in Sipta's campaign before I even joined the group. No matter what happened in the session, Miles would hold Sipta after to criticize or complain about how he ran it. Often Sipta came to me and or Mag to vent, annoyed and frustrated with his attitude and consistency. By the time the campaign ended prematurely, Sipta told me that he tries to overlook the tone and just focus on the actual criticism underneath. But still, a lot of the D&D is a story being told by someone that you get to play and interact in, so there's really no right or wrong way to... Well, that's not true. There are wrong ways to do it by generally being an asshole, which this guy sounds like, but a lot of the rules are up for interpretation, and if someone tweaks the rules, that's their own business because they're running the game. Alright, the second part of this focuses on an issue between Miles and Mag. Mag's character is a very trusting, sort of naive individual. Nice and friendly as they can be. Miles' character is really not that. Constantly wanting me to let him haggle prices down and playing up his nice guy facade. Ah, God. One session, a couple months back, Miles and Sipta's characters overheard a conversation that convinced them to leave the city immediately. Making sure no one knew where they were going? Okay. I was down for it and loved the unexpected tension that was happening. Yeah, I know there's a trope about never split the party, which isn't, necessarily true. You can split the party as many times as you want. But there's a difference between splitting the party for, story reasons and splitting the party to a point where it creates multiple separate stories that you have to maintain. And it's just a lot to handle, and it gets irritating after a while. Alright, where was I? As they were spending their last day in the city buying things and preparing for the road ahead, two things happened that sparked separate conflicts. To focus on this one, Mag's character was telling people that he was leaving since he had ordered 2 commissions and would likely not be back in time to pick them up himself, never stating where he was going. Miles started berating Mag out of character after the session, a chat I didn't know about until it was already deep into things. Miles' character had no idea this was happening, but Miles got mad at Mag for telling people that they were leaving, even though it was people Mag's character was friends with, and he never gave specifics. Okay. Again, without knowledge of any of this, in character, Miles said that his character couldn't trust Mag's character and couldn't include him in any more plans. Well, that's just like metagaming and shit. Bad roleplay and controlling behavior. Miles said that he could not separate Mag from his character. Note, however, he was not saying anything about Thorgrid, who was also just as loose with his lips and decided to ride his horse around the city, drawing eyes and stares to himself and his party. When they finally came to me about it, I thought I put an end to it by explaining to him that we are separate people from our characters and explaining Mag's feelings after he came out of character and with a hostile disposition, even if he didn't intend it to be one. I found out soon after that no, it didn't end things, and continued until last week, when they all sat down and finally just let everything rest throughout the weeks that this carried on. Miles made Mag frustrated, angry, and annoyed enough that he cried and had to vent to me, especially since Septa is the kind of guy to play devil's advocate on both sides. Sheesh, this just sounds like a shit show, man. The final and longest act of this story ended only this past Thursday and started off the game session that Miles and Mag's issues started from. In a previous session a few months ago, Miles had his character make up a story about him being a poor student with a sick family, changing his clothing and hair in order to try to get sending stones for a reduced price. Sheesh. The shop owner, a kind, sensitive orc lady, made an agreement with him. As part of the agreement, she cast the sending spell to check up on the made-up father Miles' character described to her. She ended up hearing the dying words and raising thoughts of a man who she thought was the student's father. Given the type of person she was, I figured this would be a situation where his actions traumatized someone and he'd see the consequences down the road. Probably not, I mean, seems to be one of those players that is just obsessed with, like, gold and loot, which I never really understood because, they're imaginary riches. You're playing a story. So, in the session where everything started, Miles decided to go through Act 2 of his scheme, employing his Furbolg party member Sipta to help. He had Sipta disguise him in all the robes and fancy attire he adorned himself in to talk to the lady. By this point, he knew the shop lady had connected the dots and tied him with Mag, someone who she has made friends with. Alright. Sipta walks up, disguised as Miles, purposefully getting offended and storming off when she calls Miles out on his tall tale, letting out the fact that the dying father was traumatizing as a way to make him feel guilty. Miles made his character capitalize on this information, using it against her by dressing up the same way he did when he started his scheme, made her feel guilty, gaslighting her into thinking she was wrong about 2 different customers. She closed up shop for the day, confused and crying. It was crafty, yes, but it still had its own consequences. I wasn't opposed to Miles' character doing this either. After all, evil characters will be evil characters. But is it an evil campaign? Because, like, if you're running a campaign with, like, good or neutral characters, and one of the characters is just evil, then that can throw everything out of balance and really work against the story you're trying to tell. So either run an evil campaign or run a non-evil campaign, and make sure to tell your players that beforehand, you know? This is why session zeros are important. Mag, later in the day, needed to talk to this lady as part of the errand he needed to run. In their talk, the shop lady shared why she was crying, confiding in a friend, including mentioning that the face and hair was the same of Mag's party member Miles. Together, they realized that Miles had done horrible things, and psychologically manipulated her. It was a good character moment for Mag, really showing what him being a friend to people had done at the end of the conversation. She told Mag that his face, for the time being, is not welcome in her shop. I figured this was an appropriate response from her as an analogous to a situation. I don't know that word. I went through with as it was analogous. Oh, like an analogy. Okay. Maybe. I don't know. To a situation I went through with an ex-friend of mine long ago. Next session, Mag told Miles in character in this session. In this session, however, Miles was out, upset that in a different game, Sipta, Mag, and I had reached a higher level than we were meant to. Mag gave Miles a session recap, which included the part about the shop owner. Jesus Christ, there's like 7 more paragraphs. Miles instantly got angry with me. He didn't like the consequences of his actions and called them unrealistic. Claiming that I was doing this either to favor Mag because I was letting my own morality cloud my judgment, or just to get at him. I tried to ask him why he thought all these things while also explaining my reasoning for why she acted this way, including the moment with a friend that I hadn't shared with anyone before. Got no answers on why he thought that way, and he rejected my reasoning, repeatedly calling it unrealistic. Every message he sent had me unable to say anything but what I had already said, so I stopped it, saying that I was done repeating myself and the issue was clearly about trust, that he didn't trust me as a DM. When he didn't accept that, I got heated and told him to F off. You can say fuck off, it's fine. We're all adults here. Hope, maybe. Are these people adults? I don't know. Reiterating that I've not been able to do anything but repeat myself. He responded by calling me suddenly hostile. Called you suddenly hostile? I meant that he, called you. My bad. So I had to ignore him for a while. He took the trust comment, however, and ran with it. I should have picked a less wordy one. For the context on this next step, I'm a person that hates confrontation and will hide things for people. Tell them a little white lie from people. Tell them a little white lie or omit things if they aren't big things. And if it would keep from rocking the boat, especially in tense situations where, like that, like the one that was going on between Miles and Meg. I've done it for all my friends, including Miles. Additionally, I don't have the best memory and usually forget small details, especially exact wording or small events. Anyways, after our discussion/argument, Miles started talking to Sipta, running with this theme on trust. I don't know what happened in these messages, but randomly last week, merely a few hours before the session, Miles asks me to hop into a call that he and Sipta had started so we can talk. Yeah, when the person who's actively being the problem and the person who's playing devil's advocate are like teaming up to try to freaking I don't know, make excuses for themselves and stuff and just like reason things out, they're probably just gonna try to like bully you into siding with them, basically. Throughout this call, Miles asks me leading questions, getting me to say that yes, I do white lies to avoid shaking the boat. He also tried to lead me into saying more lies that I told, but I told him the truth. I either misremembered or interpreted things differently. He seemed to accept this, stating that I do lie in order to keep tensions low and that my memory sucks. Even accepting that I kept things hidden from him or for him for the same reasons, particularly a chat we had made to talk about the concerns he had with Meg but didn't tell him about. I thought things were okay even though I was frustrated, especially after we agreed that we'd be more truthful with each other. That is, until he tells me that he does not trust me as a person or a DM. What the fuck? At that point, the conversation changed topics, helmed by Sipta, but I was mostly out of it. I didn't any longer have a friend arguing with me like he'd had so many times before with everyone else. I had him telling me that he couldn't trust me, to not be a malevolent force in his life. How does a game cause so much fucking drama? I want to know. But it's not that curious, because I've had a few bad game experiences in D&D, and one of them did cause me to cut a friend off from my life, so it'll happen, I guess. Later that night, I canceled the session since he had me in choking tears. Aw, come on. Don't be sad about assholes, man. Thinking that I was a terrible person. Thankfully, Mag was there for me, letting me talk to him, and affirming me that I was still a good, trustworthy friend. This is even after I shared with him the chat that I had kept hidden for Miles. Okay, not from. Later, Sipta said the same. Both of them knew the whole situation, although I didn't know until later that Sipta thought this was still a D&D issue, unaware that it had blown into something more. I doubt it. I mean, they kind of... He was there in the call when the guy, like, called you a bad friend and shit, so that doesn't seem very truthful. For a while, Miles and I stopped talking to each other. Sorry to Miles, by the way, my friend Miles. Like, sorry, your name is the theme of this, the bad person here. Miles and I stopped talking to each other. I needed time to myself to think about, contextualize, and do some introspection and retrospection on everything. A lot of big words, man. My intelligence score is like 10. You're gonna have to give me a break sometime. And blew them out of proportion. Twisted them into something more than they should have been, both of which actually ended with his friends in tears. After all, he took a disagreement on consequences, blew it up into calling me a liar, then twisted it to me being a malevolent force in his life. I told him this past Thursday that he had once again blown something out of proportion, tore me down, broken two of the people he deemed friends while stating that I could that I could accept not trusting my recounting of events, as he had stated himself that I lie for what we all said were benevolent reasons. Just ease off on the lying, I guess, if that's causing such an issue. Jeez. However, I was not catering... Wait, where was I? Which I was willing to fix for him, and I don't trust my own recounting sometimes due to my memory. However, I was not catering to the unhealthy assertion that these deemed me as a reprehensible person. I also told him that this was his last mercy, that if I saw him doing something this drastic and damaging again, I would not hesitate to remove him from my campaign. And after he made you cry, that probably would have been the appropriate time to remove him, I think. Like, you don't really need to keep toxic friends around. You know, it's not helpful to anyone. The next day, he left my campaign. Oh, he did it himself. Look at that. Problem fixed itself. Left my campaign in multiple group chats we were a part of. He called me terrified of taking responsibility for my actions. Said I refused to accept my own flaws as a person. Pot, meat, kettle, please. Said that he wants nothing to do with me anymore, and said that we don't have a friendship. Up until that line, I still considered him a friend. Why? One I was willing to change for. Why? Oh, that's the end of the sentence. This next Sunday is my next session, and we all plan on having fun. I asked him how he wanted his character to leave out of respect for him and his character. I will be respecting his wishes then. And that's the end of the post. That was really, really long. Very wordy. Let's look at some responses. I'm going to avoid the ones that are paragraphs long, because sheesh. See, damn, I feel for you. It doesn't sound like it was your fault, and I don't think you should blame yourself. I hope you guys can keep having fun. Wish you the best. Same. Perhaps Miles was trying to be silly like his party members were. They were allowed to parade around the city, drawing attention to themselves while trying to sneak out of town, but it was played for laughs with no consequences, while Miles' over-the-top cartoonish scheme to get a discount was treated very seriously and immediately punished? That's not the best take I've ever heard. Like, it wasn't necessarily punished, he just got caught doing his scheme. And drawing attention to yourself, well, one character drawing attention to themselves can be an effective way for the rest of the group to sneak out. It's called a diversion. Let's find... These are all paragraphs. Christ. Sounds like he's projecting the last bit there. Thank you. Alright, well, done with that. So yeah, that was my first D&D horror story. Very long-winded, seemed like a lot of unnecessary drama for in-game loot, which, again, is imaginary. It doesn't exist. Gold in the character does not transfer to gold in real life. Wish it did, that'd be pretty damn cool. If you would like to hear more RPG horror stories, let me know in the comments. Pretty please. Feedback is probably the most valuable thing I can get right now. And have a good day, everyone. Like and subscribe. See you later. Happy October. Happy Samhain. And happy Halloween, if that's your thing. It's almost basically the same thing. Yep. And I'm out.